Hi, my name's Christy, and I'm going to be answering some questions about morality. The first question is, how do you know when you've done something morally wrong? The way that I know if I've done something morally wrong is by my guilty conscience. When I was younger, however, when I hadn't yet developed a conscience, I depended upon my parents to know what was morally right and wrong, and I was disciplined if I did anything that was morally wrong. And then the second question is, how did you learn what was morally right and wrong? I've kind of somewhat answered that, but I'm going to go over it again. When I was young, before I developed a conscience, I depended on my parents, like I mentioned, to teach me what was morally right and wrong. And I grew up in a Christian household, so what we based our morality on was the Bible. So what the Bible said was morally right and wrong was morally right and wrong. My parents made sure that we knew all the biblical principles by heart. If I ever broke a biblical principle, I was severely punished, usually by a belt. As also, not just my parents taught me different moral codes, but my parents, teachers, other adults in my life, they all had different moral codes and values that they expected me to follow. As I got older and developed a conscience, I was able to tell if I did something wrong because I would feel extremely guilty. Of course, I would still get disciplined by my parents if I got caught doing something wrong, but the guilt always got to me either way. Another way that I learned what was morally right and wrong was by watching the examples of my brother, my sister, and friends, and other people in my life. So, typically, it would only really take a look from my mother in order to really discipline me because I was a very sensitive child. How can you teach morals to children? That's the third question. I think there's several ways we can teach morals to children. One way would be through stories, either nonfiction or fiction. I know the Bible stories were especially helpful to me as a child, and I think stories are still helpful today as a good way to teach morals to children. Another good way to teach morals to children is by example. I've heard it said so often, and I completely disagree with parents who say that do as I say, not as I do. I don't believe in that. I completely believe that children, whether we want them to or not, are going to follow our examples. And so I think that we need to lead good moral lives as an example to our children. I continue to try to lead a good moral life as an example for my daughter. Finally, although I don't agree with my parents, the severity of what my parents disciplined us, I do believe in discipline. Working at a daycare, I've been around many different children who had different types of discipline in their families. One case in particular, a couple didn't believe in disciplining their children at all, and these two boys were the worst boys that I've ever seen. They acted out all the time. They lashed out at their friends, at their teachers. They cursed. They were usually almost every day getting into a fight. Eventually, they were expelled from the school. And the last question is, how does cultural diversity play a role in morals? I think cultural diversity has a big impact on morals. I think that different religions, for example, have different moral codes. A good example of this would be, in one religion, it would be against the religion to have a divorce, whereas in another religion, a divorce is considered okay under certain circumstances. That's just one example. But there are other... Sorry. That's just one example, but it's not only religious differences that reflect morals. Other cultural differences affect morals as well, such as the country of origin, their family backgrounds, their ethnic backgrounds, neighborhoods where they grew up in. I hope my answers to these questions were informative to you. Thank you for listening.